Welcome back to the 127 Fit podcast. Today's guest is a business leader, ultra runner, husband, and dad. Today's guest is Tim Barr. Tim, I want to welcome you to the 127 Fit podcast.
Thanks, Quentin. Yeah, excited to be here today.
For sure, man. So, Tim, we're just going to dive right into things. The first question that I have for you as part of our conversation warm-up is, how do you start your day? Do you have a specific morning routine or ritual that you like to stick to on most mornings?
So I probably push it a little bit longer than I need to in terms of trying to stay in bed, but fortunately for me, my son is an early riser, so he's usually coming in to the bedroom at 6 a.m. He says he wakes up at 6:00, he comes in and says hi, and he goes back to his room. So it's kind of like my little alarm clock there. But some things I do, I say every single morning would be I have a full glass of water by my bed.
Cool.
And the second I wake up, I drink a full glass of water. So my wife says I have some skills to just pound back a pint of water. And I just let my body rise and just kind of prepare myself mentally. Probably 2 or 3 days a week, I'll get up before my son and go for a run.
Okay.
Anywhere between kind of a 4 to 6 mile run.
Okay.
And just kind of clear my head, but it's not every single day.
For sure. Yeah. Awesome. So, is there a favorite book that you kind of have just maybe throughout your life, or a book that you like to gift often?
Good question. There's a couple. One book that I really love is Own the Moment by Carl Lentz. He's actually a pastor of Hillsong Church in New York.
Okay.
And I think I've struggled in my life a lot with trying to just be present and just appreciate where I'm at. And I've learned how to do that better over the years, especially in the last probably 5 to 10 years. But it's a wonderful book just to kind of bring attention to that every single moment, if we can live intentionally in those moments, just how much more full our life is going to be.
Beautiful.
Another book that is just personally relevant to me would be Mere Christianity by C.S. Lewis.
Yep.
I think the world of C.S. Lewis. I think he's probably one of the most insightful authors in the last, 50 years. And that book means a lot to me for a lot of different reasons, but I think that it's one that I gift out quite a bit.
Cool.
Well. Yep.
Awesome. All right. Is there a favorite quote or mantra that you have?
I have a couple. One big one though is be the victor and not the victim. And that just kind of relates to life in any circumstance. I mean, you got the raw hand of the deal, or you have a great hand, and in either one of those situations, you can play one of two roles, and you can choose to be victorious in that situation, or you can choose to be victimized by that situation. So be the victor, not the victim. And the other one that I get drawn back to a lot is it's not about me. So really just dying to self.
Absolutely.
And kind of parking that ego it's sometimes more difficult than said, but those are two big things that I'm always kind of drawn back to.
Love it. Now, There is a quote I believe I took off your Instagram, and it states, "The steeper the climb, the more rewarding the view." What is kind of that quote? Because I believe that's kind of the quote that you have right on your main Instagram bio. So just that quote specifically, what does that kind of mean to you?
Yeah, nothing super rewarding in life. It comes without work.
Right.
And I think that there's a lot, especially in America, that just kind of give me now culture and the feed me now culture.
Right.
Is this instant gratification piece. And I think what's missing in all that, I don't think that anything really rewarding comes out of that. I think that hard work. I'm an ultra runner, and I love being out in the mountains.
For sure.
And there's a certain view at the base of a 14er, but you get up to the top of that climb, and maybe through some tears and suffering and things to get to the top, but the reward is waiting at the top. So not shying away from what's difficult.
Love it.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. So the last question as a part of the warm-up, Tim, that I have for you, and if there's more than one, please feel free to share. but do you have a favorite or most listened to podcast?
Besides the 127 Fit podcast?
That's right, man. No, yeah, besides this one. But you did say you've listened to a few episodes. I definitely appreciate that.
Absolutely, yeah, it's a good one. Yeah, I love the Rich Roll podcast.
Yep.
Big fan of Rich Roll and the guests that he brings. I think he captures the human element of our world really well. And then there's a bunch of trail running podcasts to listen to. Trail Runner Nation.
Yep.
I'm a big fan of, and the Ultra Running podcast I listen to as well.
Yeah, I've listened to, not recently, but in the past, I've listened to the Rich Roll podcast a lot. I believe Rich just does a great job. You know, how he kind of draws things out of his guests and just seems to be very, very humble and just a great interviewer. But in regards to the Rich Roll podcast, is there maybe a guest or two, maybe in the past or maybe here more recently that you've really appreciated from his podcast?
Oh man, there's probably too many. I mean, yeah, one hasn't really necessarily stood out. David Goggins was pretty good.
Yep.
The guy's pretty hardcore.
Yeah. I think that's an understatement, right?
He's a lot, but yeah, I like.
Okay, no, that's cool.
I get a little something different out of every single one. Of
Yeah,
these
for
guys.
sure.
Yeah,
and I've actually I've read. I don't know if Rich has more than one book out now, but I've read kind of the one that was just more about his life story, how he got into ultra running. It was a great read, and then like I said, I've listened to a lot of his podcasts, but then I've also listened to a lot of podcasts where he was a guest on, just because, I mean, he seems to be a very insightful human being. He's done that deep inner work, you know what I mean? And he's brought a lot of love and positivity in the world. So I really, really appreciate Rich Roll. So, all right, we're going to just kind of get into, Tim, right now, your backstory, kind of like, so if you don't mind sharing with myself and the 127 Fit podcast guests, where did you grow up? What did kind of some of those earlier years look like? And then we're just going to kind of move into kind of, you know, the 20s and then just kind of keep going on from there. So where did you grow up? What did those earlier years look like for you, Tim?
Sure. Yeah, I grew up here in Colorado.
Okay,
here in
cool.
Colorado Springs, actually. So I'm
perfect.
Colorado Springs native. Small family. Just I had one brother and just my mom and my dad, and my grandfather and grandmother lived here as well in Colorado Springs, but that was it.
Cool.
Kind of a small family, very humble roots. Like we didn't have a lot growing up.
Right.
I just, not that we were poor, but I mean, in a lot of ways, we just didn't have a whole lot of money. So we did all kinds of stuff to have fun.
Yep.
Right. I remember my parents took us, because we didn't have a whole lot. We weren't getting on airplanes all the time to go places, but we would go on road trips.
Cool.
Quite a bit. And so at a really, really young age, we'd load up in the 1972 Plymouth Satellite station wagon. And
that's awesome.
cruise down to like the sand dunes. Or, we had some friends that lived up outside of Salida, so we kind of spent some time up there.
Cool.
Backpacking with my dad. It was kind of like my first love of the outdoors. Was cruising out with my dad. We always had, in the summertime, my mom would take us one weekend, like me one weekend, and my brother would go out with my dad and go fishing, and then we'd switch.
Cool.
So I was had just like one weekend every summer that I would spend with my dad, usually out in the mountains. So I was always really on the go as a kid. Right. Always moving around. Never really stopping. So,
right.
While my brother could sit at a pond and fish with my dad, I was like, no, we gotta go.
Yep.
Somewhere. So we were always backpacking these really cool spots in Colorado. Awesome. And that was kind of my first one trip, actually, like just kind of a little side story. But we were up outside of Salida, Continental Divide, and backpacking. We started, I think, at like noon or something. We got to the trailhead, and we were hiking up to this lake, and there are the Bushnell Lakes outside of Salida.
Okay.
And it was, there weren't headlamps or anything like that, so you had these battery-powered flashlights. Well, it got dark, and we had these battery-powered flashlights, and we're like walking along the sides of cliffs and stuff, child services would probably take you away nowadays.
Right.
But I remember like just getting up to this. We finally found it. It was the middle of the night. Pack up. It's like midnight. We set the tent up, and then I was always up early as a kid, and I remember just waking up, peeking my head outside the tent, and the sun was rising like right over Bushnell Lakes in the middle of the mountains. And it is like the first time in my life I just was like completely in awe of our world. And it was like, that was like my connection, my first connection, I think, really with just God and everything else. It's just like the sun is just rising over the lake, and it's just like, I mean, such a cool moment.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but I still connect to that today. I think just being out there is like, I like seek out those moments.
Absolutely, yeah.
The world stands still. Yeah.
So, you spent a lot of time, it sounds like, kind of just exploring and being in the outdoors. And I mean, living in Colorado, it's hard not to be in the outdoors and have some sort of gratitude and appreciation for that. But so in regards to kind of like sports, because you said you were kind of like always just go type of a kid, can't really sit still. Were you involved in sports? Did you get into running at a younger age, or was that something later?
Yeah, I didn't get into running at all till I was an adult.
Oh, okay.
I played a little bit of soccer.
Okay.
But I kind of gravitated. The flip side of it is I was a little bit countercultural, I think, as a kid. Like, I mean, I would watch these surf videos when I was really little. Like, I don't know where we got surf videos, but we had surf videos, and, we're in the middle of Colorado. And I was just fascinated with the ocean, and I'd have my mom go to Goodwill and buy me all the Ocean Pacific or Peace stuff she could. But that kind of drew me into skateboarding when I was in my teens, and so that was kind of my sport. It was more kind of the, I guess the non-mainstream sports, and the more the individualized sports. So things like I was skateboarding. I started snowboarding probably 2 or 3 years after the sport was invented. I mean, there were like 3 companies that made snowboards, and so me and my Grom buddy Chris would go up to Monarch, and people were wondering even what a snowboard was when we were up there. But I think that kind of took me down. It was like I had this like weird cultural thing of like really conservative home, really conservative family, and then I was like just a little bit punk rock, on the side, and just trying to figure out who I was. I think it's just really it was kind of a weird deal, I think. But yeah. No,
this is the part of the conversations that I love, is just kind of like, because we are all still as grown adults, as grown men and women, on some level, still to this day, we are all products of our home environment, where we grew up. The adults that were in our lives, we're all products still to this day, till the day we die, on some level of those environments that we grew up in. And that doesn't mean we can't change. It doesn't mean we have to live life like our mom and our dad or the adults that were in our lives. But obviously, we have our parents' DNA in us. And obviously, when we're young kids, our minds, our bodies, everything is developing. We're learning through hearing and seeing and things like that. So we have that, we have that within us. We are products of our home environment. So you just said that you kind of grew up in Colorado Springs. Like, anybody that's going to be listening to this podcast that lives in Colorado, everybody kind of knows Colorado Springs is like the conservative capital of Colorado, right? So, and then you said you kind of grew up in a conservative home, things like that, and we'll get into kind of your faith here a little bit later. But so you kind of being doing the skating and the snowboarding, and then you said you were pretty high energy and stuff. Did that at any point ever cause any friction with your parents or within your home environment, or were your parents very supportive of you just kind of exploring and trying to find out who you were?
Man, that's a great question. I think my parents were always supportive of me. I think that they were most proud probably of my academics, because I was a really smart kid.
Cool.
And so I went to a private Christian school through 4th grade. Okay. And I homeschooled 5th and 6th grade. Okay. And then went back into the public school system in middle school. Okay. And so, and I excelled academically. I think there was a fear. There's definitely a fear from probably from my mom. I picked it up most, of just like, oh man, like what is this whole skateboarding thing mean? Right. And I don't know if it was a fear that I was just going to get hurt on my skateboard, or it was just like that particular crowd. And I had great friends that were positive influences, but along with that culture, there comes a lot of negative stuff.
Absolutely, yep.
And so I think as a parent, like I'm a parent now, and I can see from their point of view, like how's he going to come out on the other side of this thing, right? So, but snowboarding wise, man, my mom was the first one to drive me and my buddies up to the slopes, you know, and support that. So, I'm sure there was fear on their side, and I'm sure that they haven't supported every decision that I've made. Right, yeah. Because I made a lot of stupid ones.
Yeah, but, we all have, man. We all have, that's for sure.
Yeah, but I think just love conquers all.
Yeah, for sure.
They've always just like poured out as much love as they have. You know.
So that kind of like you going into the skateboarding and things like that, kind of the punk rock side of things, that you still though basically it sounds like kind of stayed on the straight and narrow. You got good grades, you know, and all that. Like it never really led you into maybe the darker side of things. You just kind of enjoyed the skating and the snowboarding, but you just kind of always again stayed on that straight and narrow. Is that fair to say or not?
Probably most of the way through high school.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. If we're kind of going that far.
Yeah. We're just up to high school. We'll get into college here in a minute.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Cool. All right. So snowboarding, skateboarding, kind of the punk rock scene, things like that. And again, grew up kind of in a conservative home. Now, like when you say conservative, are you talking about kind of just like was like Christianity, was faith something that was a big part of your upbringing and something that you kind of partook in as a kid?
Yeah,
okay,
absolutely. We went to this small little church growing up, on the east side of Colorado Springs, and then I think once I got in the public school system, there's a big mega church here in Colorado Springs that was just kind of getting founded at the time. And so my parents were looking for more community for me, and I think my brother eventually. And so we started attending this other church, and I made some great friends, and I had some really good experiences there. So I think and yes, absolutely, like faith was a huge part of growing up. And I think that if there's one gift I think my parents have given me, it really is that the faith that I have now has developed over time, but they gave the seed, right,
for sure,
and I'll forever be grateful for that.
Cool. All right, so let's move on. Kind of post high school, moving out of the parents' home and things like that. So let's talk a little bit about college. Let's talk about kind of some of those experiences you had in college, and then also at some point I want to talk more about kind of like that faith, because myself personally, I grew up in a home where I went to church every Sunday, youth group, things like that, and then for me it was towards the end of high school, and then really hard the first couple of years in college. I just walked away from God and started partying and things like that. So I want just share about college, share about some of the experiences, and then also Tim, if you don't mind touching on where did the whole faith thing kind of play into in regards to college? Was it kind of a similar experience with me, where it's just like, hey, I started partying, I kind of did Tim's thing, or was the faith something that was a part of your life in those college years and continues to be up to this point? So what did the college years look like, and kind of where did that faith play in at that time of life for you?
Sure. And I think with anything, there comes a point in your journey where you have to, and I think it's a really good thing to start just questioning what it is that you've been spoon-fed your whole life. And I don't mean that in a negative way for my parents or any of that, but I mean it really, there's just this thing of like I had a couple, I like the church I went to was a huge evangelical church, but very judgmental. Yeah. And so I saw this huge thing. Like, I don't want to be a part of this judgmental clique. because I think that, you know, a lot of the rules and things that that I felt like were just imposed by other people and not necessarily like scriptural. Because to the point, you know, the Jesus I saw in the Bible was out there in the world. And I kind of felt like the people that I was interacting with and networking with at my church community were just building walls and kind of staying in their own little bubble,
right,
if you will. And so I don't think I ever became totally agnostic, but in a lot of ways I would just started just really questioning what it was that, like, who's the Jesus I believe in.
Absolutely.
And really, I just wanted to live my own life for a while. And I think you get out of that sort of conservative bubble. And like a lot of stories, mine's not unique.
Right.
I was like, holy cow, I'm in college. I have access to alcohol, and I've been listening to the Beastie Boys my whole life. Like, you know, I mean, it just all the just the world. Like, yeah, I stepped out into it, and not like I just stepped into it, man. Just dove right in. And,
yeah.
I had a bunch of friends. I'm still really good friends with them now, but I had friends in college that we just like, yeah, we let loose, like in a really big way.
Right.
And it's funny when you look back on it now, because I just realized how, you know, how clouded I think just my mind was from the booze and from the partying and stuff. And there's like great stories you can tell and you laugh about these things, but then you're just like, oh man, that was the best night. Like, I don't remember any of it.
Right.
And it's just like, okay, like I look at it now and I go, well, what, like, how did that add to my experience in life, you know? And I'm reading a lot about just alcohol and what it does to the body right now. That's a lot of my journey this year has been really questioning like what role alcohol even has in my life anymore. But it is eye-opening when you look back and you're just like, man, that was like the best night ever, and you just don't have any real recollection of it. And just like just being out there and being stupid. Absolutely. Or like, hey, I could have died.
Yep.
You know, wasn't that a blast? So I remember there was a point in time though, like I had, we were up, we'd taken some mushrooms, and like went to this party, and I mean, we were having a good time, but I got back home and I was alone. And I think I always said, you know, your moment in the mirror, like you go to the bathroom in a party and you've been drinking too much, or you come back home at night and you look in the mirror, brushing your teeth or whatnot, and that's like your moment of reality, where you're staring at yourself and you're looking at yourself and no one else is around. And I had I came back from this party and I was like laying in my bed and I was just like, what in the world? Like my moment in the mirror of like, what am I doing? Like, you're not doing anything with your life, Tim. And I think, and it wasn't like crazy. I didn't almost die or anything like that. But it was a moment of like, I got to get my crap together. Absolutely. And it wasn't like I need to like find faith again. But it was just like, this isn't what I want to be doing with my life. Yeah. So I backed off pretty, like after that night, I backed off pretty big. It was like, I'm going to take kind of a hiatus from just partying so hard. And so that was, I guess, moment wise, like, I guess I just kind of got lost in my thought. But yeah, it was like kind of that point in time where I was just like, I got to kind of back off a little bit.
Yeah.
And not too long after that, my wife now, I met her, and it was just fortuitous that we ran into each other. But she hadn't really been drinking for a couple of reasons, and I was kind of taking a break, and we started hanging out, and we were kind of bring the whole faith thing back around.
Yeah.
So we're in Boulder. And I had been to this little like vineyard church in Boulder like once or twice in college. I think just to like go check in and be like, all right, God, you still like? Am I still?
I did the same thing, man. Yep, I got you.
So and I'm driving, and she didn't like. Julie didn't come from a Christian home.
Okay.
No faith background at all. And we like happened to be driving by this church in Gun Barrel, and I'm like, yeah, I go to that church sometimes. She's like, oh, really? Like, I'd love to go with you someday. And I was like, what? Really? And so I think we decided to go on like Easter, like when half the world goes twice a year.
Yeah.
Easter and Christmas, but we decided to go to church on Easter, and one of her coworkers was there.
Okay.
And so she had like instant connection there, and we sat down, and then the pastor gives the altar call. She Julie grabs my hand. She was like, "Hey, will you go up there with me?" I'm like, "What? Like this is what in the world is going on here?"
You kind of know what all that's about, right?
Yeah, I've been like outside the faith for a long time.
Right.
And to see like a genuine draw and a pull from God in her life, where she has none of the baggage that I had.
Right.
Opened my eyes to be like, you know what? It's really about like my problem. Like at that point, like I realized my problem is with the people. My problem is never with faith,
right,
with my relationship, and trying to figure all that out, because I think there's enough grace,
absolutely,
in the world to like, we're kids, God knows that, and He's trying to figure it out. But I realized like all my baggage was with people, and why am I putting so much stock in people, and why don't I just try to get my own crap together and kind of move out in that? So that was kind of my drawback moment, and I wouldn't say that it wasn't like from that point on, everything has just been gravy.
Right.
But I did decide at that point, like, my faith is not in people, my faith is in God. And, and it's going to be a journey.
Right, for sure.
Yeah, we're going to figure this out. But, I mean, it was super cool to kind of see God move in her life, and I didn't.
Right, yeah, no, I love that, man. So, so you mentioned, Boulder, so I'm assuming you went to college at the University of Colorado in Boulder then?
Yep.
Okay, cool. So just quickly, before we move on from college, what did you end up studying then, Tim, in college?
Sure, yeah, I got a business degree.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, so I have a business degree, emphasis is in marketing.
Okay.
And I've always been super interested in architecture and architecture and construction since I was little. And I got a business degree because I talked to an advisor in the architectural school that said, if you really want to succeed in architecture, go get a business degree because architects need business people
for sure
to help run their firms. And
so, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No.
Okay, so in regards to you just shared with us kind of like the partying and kind of just like kind of the chaos and the craziness of being in college. Did that on any level affect your grades and kind of your overall college experience, or were you able to kind of live in that separation of the partying and actually going to school, getting good grades, and getting the degree?
It was a wake-up call. You go there freshman year, and you just go crazy.
Yeah.
And I think I took my first, I can't even remember what the class was, but my first test came back, got like a C.
Yeah.
And I never got a C in my life. I'm like,
dude, my test came back, I got an F, so you're a little bit ahead of me, so.
I was like, I got to figure out how to study.
Yeah.
But I got real efficient. I think in my junior year, I had one really bad semester.
Okay.
Like one, really bad semester. I think I had like a C average for that semester, which was not typical for me.
Right.
But I was able to kind of pull out of that. So I graduated with a decent GPA. I was like 3.5 GPA. Felt really good about that. So I figured out how to be pretty efficient.
Yeah, for sure.
Take all my classes on Tuesdays, Thursdays, block out my Sundays and half a day Monday for all my studying and just really being efficient there, and then the rest of the time was spent like either snowboarding or hanging out with my buddies. Cool.
All right, so let's unpack a little bit. Kind of what did post college look like? Did you go right into kind of the business world or the architectural world? What did things look like when you graduated from the University of Colorado?
Yeah, so I'll just preface it with like I've been extraordinarily blessed, like crazy blessed in my life. Everything I have is, I just feel like I haven't really deserved. But I have been placed in just amazing positions to meet amazing people, and in positions of leadership since I was in college. I interned for a planning firm in Denver while I was in school. And then I got out and I worked for a local architect here in town in their marketing group, and was able to learn a ton. And then my wife got into grad school in San Diego, or outside of LA. So we moved to Pasadena for about a year and a half. But I have stayed in the architectural and construction community on the business side. Since college. Awesome. Basically. So I worked up until this year. I had worked 22 years without more than like 2 weeks off.
Wow.
Even between jobs. And so, and all of those positions have been within some sort of management role or senior leadership role, which has been really, really cool to always be placed in those positions.
Absolutely.
And I'm always kind of learning in that. So I think, my business degree has been put to great use.
Yeah, for sure.
Unlike a lot of other degrees that have been given. But the built environment, I think, I'm a team builder and culture maker.
Right.
And I think the built environment is one of those places that you can really impact culture and build community more so than a lot of other roles, right? Like buildings impact and build environments and create experiences for people. So I'm big on that. And I always have the why, you know.
Cool. So you do you, so in regards to kind of like always being like in these leadership positions and things like that, what do you feel like as you maybe do some inner work and kind of just, we all reflect, right? We all think about ourselves and like kind of like, why did this happen or why didn't this happen, things like that. So as you maybe have reflected on your life and done some of that deep inner work, and what do you think has been maybe a strength or a couple strengths of yourself personally, Tim, that has allowed you to continue to be in some of these great positions and have some of these great opportunities in your life? And I understand, being a man of faith, we look at God and just thank Him for these opportunities. But just for yourself personally, what are some of those strengths that you think you bring to the table that have been able to keep you in leadership positions?
Sure. I've kind of several philosophies on this. I think I'm big on self-awareness, number one. And there's a lot of tools that you can go out and use people have heard of DISC, they're basically self-evaluation tools that help you determine kind of where your strengths are as an individual.
Right.
And so Strengths Finders is one that's put out by Gallup, and there's 30 plus core strengths that are evaluated, and they're ranked 1 to 35. And each person has like your top 5 strengths. It's like 1 in like 32,000 people have your same top 5 strengths in the same top 5 order.
Wow. Okay.
So we're like snowflakes.
Yeah.
And when I look at my profile, which I view as my gifts, that I've been given, like hardwired into my DNA.
Absolutely.
My number 1 strength is strategic.
Okay.
So I'm very strategy driven. My number 2 is activator. So I look at building teams and helping activate so if you can build a strategic mission for a firm, and then you can rally the troops and build a team and activate people to kind of get out there and do it. And then my number 3 strength is futuristic. So I'm looking down the road a ways, which on the flip side, right? Like I need to work at being present.
Right.
But I guess the point of that is like I feel like the gifts that I've been given really help me in kind of that leadership type position. I can really easily unpack really complex situations and help people discover a path forward.
Interesting.
So, some of the work that I've been doing over the last like 4 or 5 months, I've been helping small business owners that have great vision say these are the 2 or 3 things that you need to work on over the next 12 months. Don't work on all 15 things that you really want to do. Work on these top 3.
Right.
And here's how you go about doing that. Create an action plan to do it. And then you can start biting off. Once we check that box, we can get to the next piece. So it gives people a roadmap and helps people understand a good way to go about doing things, right? To get from A to B.
Right, right.
And that's just a gift that I've been given. So I think just that combination has been really helpful, like number 1. And then number 2, just building relationships and being able to just, I'm authentic as an individual, and I think everybody has value. And so the friendships and relationships that I've been able to make in the industry, they're like at this point, go coast to coast from, New York to LA.
Right, right.
And I have, I like to make a statement like 2 or 3 phone calls, I can learn almost anything about any project that I need to. And those come through relationships and through coffee with a person one at a time, right? And those are things that I really enjoy. So maybe those 2 things, like how I'm hardwired and then how I'm able to build teams and build a relationship.
Beautiful. Love that. Okay. So, I want to talk a little bit about, because you at some point, because this is our podcast conversation has been a long time in coming. I think I look back on the first couple of emails that we had between us, and it was back in May. And so we're sitting here in early September. So I think when I first reached out to you, you kind of had your own business or something of that nature. And once I asked the question here, I want you to clarify and explain a little bit more. But I think at that time you kind of had your own business. And then before we started the actual podcast conversation, you mentioned just recently getting hired for another job. So I want you to talk about kind of leaving the corporate world initially, starting your own business or kind of having your own thing, and then the reasons kind of behind stepping back into the corporate world, and just maybe some lessons learned through this whole transition process.
Yeah. God, that's a big.
this could be a 30-minute one, but it's really important. I want to hear your perspective because you've had a lot of life experiences. You like you said, you've been in a lot of great situations. You had great opportunities. You have great connections. So I just want to kind of get your point of view of because kind of the whole entrepreneur thing is kind of like a buzzword now. It seems like you get on Instagram, social media, it's kind of cool, but I've had a lot of entrepreneurs on here, and the reality is being an entrepreneur maybe at some point is kind of cool and there's some freedoms and things like that, but the reality is it's hard, it's a grind, and there's a lot that goes into it. So I just want to kind of hear your perspective of being in the corporate world, being successful there, kind of having your own business, and then why did you decide maybe to step back into the corporate world? So I just want to get your personal perspective on that.
Yeah, sure. So, and I told you when I came in here, it has been probably the best but most complicated season of my whole life. This year. And it has, like I said, I worked 22 years without more than 2 weeks off.
Right.
And I was working for a great company. Like I worked for a great company, like good people, employee owned, had a what I felt like was a good role with this company as a senior leader within the firm. And but there were a couple really toxic people that I reported up to, up the chain. And I'm not one to shy away from hard ever. Right. I run 100-mile races, right? Like
absolutely.
I mean, like hard is not. It's not something that scares me.
Right.
But I do have problems with toxic, and I think there's a lot, and I'm not unique. I think there's a lot of toxic behavior that happens in the world for a number of reasons, but one, we're all just broken people.
Absolutely.
And I had some real heart-to-heart talks with my wife earlier this year about like, what do I do? Like I'm really stuck. And so long story short, I sat down with another senior leader within the firm and said, hey, look, I'm having these issues. What do you think I should do? And they looked right at me and they said, nothing's going to change. And it's like, kind of, you take it or leave it. And it was April 1st was a really tough day because we both just decided to part ways, like suddenly. Yeah. And I think looking back on it, emotionally, I feel like a failure in a lot of ways. Like, holy crap, I've been able to make everything work in my life, and I couldn't get through this. Right. But the beauty in it all is like literally like the day after that happened, I reached out. I've got probably 5 people on my contact list that are like they're my people. Yeah, absolutely. I can trust them with anything. And I just called them to let them know what had happened, and like the amount of life that they poured into my soul of like, Tim, this is a really good thing. Like you were gifted, you were talented, you were loved, and you're gonna be just fine. Was like exactly what I needed. And then the day after that, I get a call from 2 other people that are like, hey, we need your help. Like other companies that say, hey, we need your help with strategy and like, small business owners trying to grow a business. And so I was like, well, hey man, made this my moment. And so it was this thing where I was able to kind of reach out and start helping these other businesses and kind of create my own basic consulting firm. Right. And at the time, I didn't know whether it was like I'm going to be just bridging a gap for a certain amount of time until I find a job or what. But the thing is I wasn't out looking for a job. I wasn't sending resumes out. I was just like, this is where I'm at right now, and this is the season of life. Right. And yeah, you're right. It was being an entrepreneur was kind of beautiful in a lot of ways because it was like I'm training for the Leadville 100 and I can go out and run whenever I want. For sure. I went on a bunch of trips. Like went to the Grand Canyon and ran it with my buddies. Right. So it was cool to have that freedom, and financially, like I felt like God was just like, hey, like I got your back. Like, you're gonna be just fine. Cool. Yeah. And so resting in that moment, but still seeking guidance of like, is this something that I'm going to be in permanently, or is this something, or is it not? And I got a call a couple months ago from there's a design firm in Denver that I've always just had a ton of respect for. Cool. Architectural firm, and seeking basically a leader for the office on the operations side. And they call it the local CEO. Okay. It's the office practice leader position. Okay. And I was like, at the time, I'm like, dude, I don't know if I'm even qualified. For this thing, but let's talk. And just through conversations, just really enjoyed and liked the people that I was talking to. And still never turned in a resume. Right. For the position. Officially applied and just kind of went through to see if it was going to be a good fit, but just trusted. Right. In it. So, I mean, that's where I'm going. And one thing that I think entrepreneurship has its advantages, and yes, I think there's a lot of buzz around it, like just be your own boss. For sure. But personally, I believe we're hardwired to work. I think it is in our DNA to work, and I think that we're hardwired for community. And the thing I did struggle with on the entrepreneur side of things is that I have community, but I didn't have community, and I missed that. I missed the team side. I missed going into the office and being able to kind of work with a group of people. And personally, I felt like the impact that I was going to be able to make in the world culturally is going to be a lot bigger if I'm working with a group and a team of people. So that was really what pushed it over the edge for me in stepping back into the corporate world. Was like, look, my ability to really make a huge impact is probably going to be bigger working with this company and being able to help run the local office here. Yeah. Versus just being on my own and trying to hustle deal to deal, which I still think I could succeed at. But,
absolutely, you could. Yeah.
It's exciting to kind of step back into that. So it was less about stepping back into the corporate world for safety, and more just really thinking through how can my skills and my talents and those 5 gifts that I was talking about, your strengths, how are those best leveraged?
Yes.
And you put those in 2 columns and you say entrepreneurship versus stepping back in and working with a group of people. And I just felt like it was my ability to be able to work and really make an impact in the world was going to be bigger. Cool.
Now, you mentioned that, this season of life this year has been the most difficult, the hardest. And so through some of these difficulties, and what happened, in early April and things like that, what's 1 or 2 takeaways that you have gathered or learned that have been just invaluable for you and where you want to move forward with yourself personally, and then with your family?
Sure. I'm maybe going to spin it a little bit into just others and just conversations that I've heard from other people.
Yeah.
And I have a friend right now who was texting me on Saturday night, actually, and saying, like, he's struggling. He's struggling in his current position. He's been looking for other jobs, been trying to get out into something less toxic.
Right.
And I think what I have realized through it all is, like, we create and we have fear. Like, we all have some sort of fear of the future, whatever that is.
Yep.
And I think something that has really come to me is fear itself is an emotion, right? That is grounded in a future that isn't even written yet.
For sure. Yeah.
Like, we are like petrified to, like, move forward with our lives because we're like, oh my God, what if? And I was in the same position. I was just like, well, what if I quit my job? Oh my God, what are we going to do? I'm like the big breadwinner, and I've got a 7-year-old kid at home. I mean, we could lose our house, and it was just like, well, hey, what's the worst that could happen? All right, yeah, you lose your house, you move in with your in-laws, and it would suck.
Yeah.
But we're not going to be on the street.
Right.
I mean, these are first world problems that we deal with. And so the excuses that I hear from people that are stuck especially in their careers, is number 1 is healthcare. Like, people will work a job that they hate, and they will go into work every freaking day and be completely miserable because they're scared of losing healthcare, which really, you get on the open market, and yeah, it's expensive, but you're talking, if you're an individual, $500-$600 a month,
right,
to $1,000 a month. So you're sacrificing your own personal joy and your ability to be able to leverage your gifts for $1,000 a month.
Right.
Think about that. Like, and I bring a lot of this stuff back to ultra running and into some of the other, like, more physical things that I do. And yeah, like, I'm freaking terrified to go out and run a 100-mile race. How am I going to get through 100 miles? It's just ludicrous. But it's not until you get out there and charge it head on and take that first step that you're really going to see the breakthrough. So those have been really big for me. Like, I'm not at this point. I could care, like, I don't ever want to get laid off again.
Right.
But so what?
For sure.
It's not even a fear of mine anymore. Whereas, like, 22 years I've been employed, like, almost every day, right?
Right.
And then I don't have a job for a while, and now I'm, like, on the other side of that, like, it would suck to get laid off, and I feel for the people that are out there that are looking for work, but it's really not. It's not going to be the end of the world. And so that would be my, like, biggest lesson is just, like, there is, I post a lot on social media about a lot of this stuff. It's just about fear and vulnerability and just being authentic and being yourself and, like, do what's freaking hard. And it sucks. It's like, oh my gosh, how am I going to get through this? But you know what? Like, and probably having faith helps in that.
Absolutely,
like, if
for sure.
You didn't have, like, any sort of faith background, I mean, you're kind of flailing on your own. But I'm fully confident that the right door is going to open up. Whatever your faith background is, the universe is going to open the right door for you and take care of you. So.
Yeah, cool. I appreciate you sharing that, Tim. Now, in the introduction, I said you're an ultra runner. You've brought that up several times just in our conversation. So, and earlier I asked if running was something you kind of partook in when you were younger, and you said it was later in life. So I would really like to touch on the ultra running. So kind of when did you start running? And then there's a big difference between, running a mile or two or running a 5K and then doing these ultra marathons and things like that. And then earlier in the year, you ran in the Leadville 100, which from my understanding is one of the most prestigious and one of the most difficult ultra runs in if not in our country, in the world as well. So just kind of unpack, where did the running kind of start? How did you get into the ultras? And maybe just share a lesson or two that you've learned through running.
Sure. Yeah, and to your point, a mile or two versus 100, it's all relative. So, I remember training for my first 5K.
Right.
In San Diego back in the early 2000s. And we trained. We put together a little training program, and we went out and ran, then we finished a 5K, and it was exciting. So I don't want to ever belittle somebody. Running is running, and setting a goal is setting a goal.
For sure.
I'm the type of individual that's all in and to the extreme. Like I said, I don't shy away from what's difficult.
Right.
But all that said, I did a lot of triathlon when I was in San Diego.
Okay.
So slowly kind of got into that. Didn't know how to swim when I started. I was like the last person out of the water my first triathlon. So it was just, what is that next thing that I can challenge myself with? And I feel like it's a great outlet back to the college thing where I was like just addicted to alcohol. Probably an alcoholic by all definitions of it. Maybe I replaced it with running and doing endurance sports. My thought is who cares, because I'm doing something that's
for sure
healthier.
But
so I started out with triathlon and that sort of thing. We moved back to Colorado at the end of 2012.
Okay.
And I had some friends that were into trail running, had some friends that were doing stupid long ultra distance stuff, and I still was like, these ultra people are crazy. But I did a couple of trail runs and just really loved, even just back to my childhood, just being in the mountains. I was like, God, this is amazing. I live in Golden, Colorado.
Absolutely.
I can go run. I see Courtney DeWalter out running the trails, by my house. It's just super, super cool. And so I had the opportunity to pace somebody. So at these 100-mile races, at mile 50, you can pick up a pacer, usually. And then that pacer is just there to make sure that the runner is eating and moving and not getting off the trail, because you get super delirious.
Right.
And, all kinds of bad things can happen to solo runners after 50 miles of running. So I had the opportunity to pace an athlete who, at the time, I didn't know, over 26 miles of the Leadville 100. And it was a friend of a friend introduced me.
Okay.
And her name was Christina. And I told her, I was like, you people are freaking nuts.
Right.
This is seriously crazy. The furthest I'd ever run on a trail was 10 miles or something.
Yeah.
I was like, but I had read about the Leadville 100 through Born to Run, and yes, it's definitely one of the largest. It's a prestigious race. I wouldn't say it's the hardest 100, but it's just electric
for sure.
Being part of the energy there. And so I paced Christina through the night. We were barely making cutoffs. I got her to my checkpoint. She finishes this race, and but I got back in the car after my section, and it was 2 a.m, and my wife is sitting there, with everybody's freezing. It's an outward bound. It's this really cold place in Leadville, and I get back in the car and I'm shivering, and Julie looks over at me. She's like, "So how was it?" And I just looked at her, and she's like, "Oh God, no." I just had that look, oh my God, this is possible. This is possible. And she goes, "You're going to do this, aren't you?" And so that's what sparked it for me, was just being a part of that energy, running through the night. I love night running in the mountains. I think it's one of the most beautiful things you can do. Talk about being present. You only have your headlight.
Absolutely. 10
feet in front of you is all you can focus on. And it's just dark everywhere.
Right.
So yeah, that kind of got my energy sparked for that. So I did a couple of medium distance races. I did a 50 miler the next year.
Okay.
And then I signed up for Leadville in 2016.
Okay.
Was my first 100.
Mm-hmm.
And trained super hard for it, and like went up there and did pretty well. I was just outside big buckle time, which is you have 30 hours to finish the race. 25 is like they call it their big belt buckle.
Uh-huh.
And I was like 25:30.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So like everybody knew I was going to go back.
Yeah.
You know, they're like, Tim was 30 minutes outside the big buckle time. He's going to go back. So, so yeah, I don't have a ton of experience as an ultra runner. I've ran like 300-mile races. I ran Tahoe, and then I went back this year and got redemption at Leadville.
Cool. You got your belt buckle then, the big one?
Yeah, man.
Okay,
I brought
cool.
it with me, so you
awesome.
can check it out.
Cool. Yeah, you're gonna have to show me, man.
But yeah, it
cool.
I put myself in the pain cave for I finished in 24:06 this year.
Cool.
Which I feel really good about.
Yeah, congratulations, man. That's awesome. Yeah.
It hurt. Yeah. I went through some dark
spots.
spots.
It did, dude. I'm sure that's a hurt that I never want to find out about.
Yeah.
But that's cool.
But the beauty in any type of running, the furthest you've ever ran is the furthest you've ever ran. Is what I say. So it's all relative.
Right.
But I truly don't think without having run like 50-mile, 100-mile races, like everything that happened in April, like just being like, oh crap, I can't figure it out with my firm, and just being on my own and feeling like the difficult situations in my own personal life aren't really that difficult. Like I know I like equate it back to my runs, and I'm like, I was in a really dark spot and wanted to quit at like even this year's race.
Right.
Like I wanted to quit at mile 65. I was like done. I was laying against a tree. My pacer's like, dude, Tim, like pick yourself up. We got to keep going. And I was like, I can't do this anymore.
Right.
But just knowing that, yeah, it's a valley, and it's just part of like life is always fluid. I think you said like we're always in motion, and just knowing like, hey, pick yourself up, like just one step at a time. Your goals become a lot smaller. You're not looking 2 years down the road. Sometimes you're looking 5 hours down the road. But like the things and the threads that I'm able to pull out of these ultra distance runs are like invaluable for like mental strength to get through life.
So my mindset from my perspective and listening to a lot of different podcasts and people that are in terms of the world successful, mindset is everything. Mindset is a very, very our mind is a very powerful tool in our toolbox as human beings. And obviously with the ultra running and things like that, the mind is the mind is everything. So is there like a quote? Is there a mantra? Is there like a word? Where do you kind of like allow your mind to go, or what is going on in your mind when you are competing in these ultra runs?
Being present,
okay,
I would say is probably the biggest piece.
Okay.
Like it is the here and now. Like the second you start looking too far down the road, like if you have a twinge in your foot at mile 30 and you think, how am I going to survive 70 more miles?
Right.
And like, so just that bringing myself back to the here and now. Sometimes it's shorter. Sometimes it's getting to the next aid station. Right. And it's like in life. Sometimes it's like get to that next checkpoint. Like, oh God, man, I can't wait to get to my 2-week vacation. Right. But honestly, sometimes it's like, I got to just make it through the freaking day.
Absolutely.
And so those are things of like, can I bring myself back? And I told all my pacers this year, and I had like Hillary, really good friend of mine. She runs for the Adrenaline Project up there in Denver. And she was like the best at, I'd be like, oh man, Hope Pass was so hard. And she'd be like, that's awesome, Tim. Let's talk about Hope Pass after the race. Like, let's just keep moving. We're going to that tree. Yeah. And she would just get me to that tree and get me to that next stop, And it's like taking one step at a time. Right. Forward. But I mean, she probably did the best job of any pacer I've ever had of just bringing me back to the here and now. And I think we need those people in our lives to be like, absolutely. Hey, Quentin, like you have this dream and you're getting frustrated because you're not getting there. It's like, hey, focus on the moment in the here and now, and then keep taking a step forward. Don't get petrified by it. Don't quit.
Yeah.
But you're gonna eventually get there.
Powerful. Cool. So we're at 59 minutes right now, so we're gonna kind of start moving towards the end of things. But I wanna ask a few more questions here. Now, in one of your recent Instagram posts, you were talking about I believe it was on Instagram, maybe it was Facebook, but it was on one of your social media platforms. You were talking about comparison. So I just kind of want you to just unpack that a little bit. Especially with social media nowadays, Tim, we all know, like, the comparison thing. It's like you're following this person. It's like, oh, they're training at this time, or they just got done. They posted this workout and mine wasn't as hard, or it gets all crazy. But how should we as human beings be aware of kind of that comparison trap, and how can we work through just being ourselves, taking care of what's in front of us, and not getting caught up in comparing, what this person's doing or what they're not doing, and things like that. So just speak a little bit, just from your heart, in regards to comparison.
Yeah. And it's something I think we all struggle with.
Absolutely.
And I think social media is like the enemy of contentment. Comparison is the enemy of contentment.
Yeah.
And I think that post really had to do, like, if you go to my Instagram, feed, it's a bunch, like, it is themed out to the max.
Right.
It is all either running or nature or like some sort of adventure related post. But it doesn't show the in-between moments of life that are hard. It doesn't show the days I just don't want to get out of bed, and the hard workouts that I've had where I'm like, this freaking sucks, I don't want to be out here. And then you go to your friends' feeds and they're like at the gym, and they're climbing and they're like doing all these like amazing things. And then compound that with, for us runners and cyclists in the world, there's Strava. Which is another platform that's even like worse. Because I'm like feeling super proud. Like this morning I got up and ran like 6 miles. And I guarantee I go on Strava right now and like I have a friend that's like ran 18. And I'm like, dang it. I'm not as good as this other person. So I think we all just need to be super aware. That, look, Instagram is just like one thing. It's like your friend that lives in the really nice house down the street that has all that stuff that you think that you want. And then you go talk to them and their marriage is freaking falling apart. And there's just parts of their life that are just like completely shredded. Just, we need to be so intentional in life just to know, like, hey, look, we need to be content with what we have. And like sometimes it's like for me, I shut my phone off. And I know if I'm not, like, if I'm in a season where I'm not working out as much, I'm not checking Strava and Instagram and all that, just because I know it's just going to create angst in my soul. So I'm hoping to, like, what I'm trying to do more of through even my social media is create like more awareness and humanity behind why it is that I'm posting what I do, or encouragement for people just to get out there and do it. Like, it might not be a 100-mile race, but what is that thing that's holding you back? Like, attack it. And I'm starting to get, as I get deeper and more vulnerable, I think with my posts, I'm starting to get messages back from friends that are like, thanks, man, I'm going through this. Like, how do I get through this? And, but yeah, it's just an awareness thing. I suck at it, like, just like everybody else. But, sometimes you gotta turn the phone off, right?
For sure, yeah. And I mean, I love Instagram. I love social media because honestly, this podcast wouldn't exist without Instagram, specifically without social media. That's how I make the majority of my contacts and connections is through Instagram, through Facebook. But yeah, we, and the whole kind of the running theme, but kind of a quote or mantra that is often in my mind, and I share with some people, is run your race. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
because and the thing is, it comes from actually running. They have here in the Springs, the first Saturday of every month, there's a free 2-mile run. They do it down by kind of Colorado College, and I've done it a couple times, and I hadn't run for a while. I was like, I'm gonna go do that. It's just 2 miles, no big deal. And I just went out like too fast. You know what I mean? Because everybody's like goes out fast, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna kind of in the back of the pack. I'm gonna catch up. And then at some point when you do that, you kind of hit a wall. And even though it's 2 miles and stuff, it's just like, man, I shouldn't have gone out so fast. And from that experience, this phrase or this quote or this mantra popped up in my head, and just saying, Quentin, you need to run your race. And now I'm actually a middle school cross country coach this year at my school, the Vanguard School, and that's something I've been really encouraging my runners and my athletes is like, hey, especially when you're younger, there's like kind of the pack, and these kids, they're full of adrenaline or whatever. It's their first race, and they're gonna shoot out, okay? Mm-hmm. And that's why this is what I've been telling my kids. I'm like, I want you guys to run your race.
Yeah.
And that's something outside of running. Just, I think it's a powerful phrase for life because of the social media, because it's so easy for us as human beings to compare and try to gain our self-esteem or whatever from other people. Oh, I'm better than that person because I did this or whatever. We just need to focus on our business. We need to focus on ourselves and taking care of what's in front of us. We need to run our own race. And I think if we have that mindset, Tim, that's really powerful, and we can have a greater impact in the world if we just take care of our business and just allow God to do with our lives what He wants to do. Would you agree with that? Just running your race, focusing on you, and just allowing God to do His thing.
Yeah, that's
cool.
Really powerful.
Cool. Yeah. Awesome. So let's. I want to give you just the platform and the opportunity because you are a husband, you are a dad. And anybody, that's in that category or a mom, what have you, that comes on my podcast, I always want to give them an opportunity just to kind of talk about their family and what, being married, what having a kid or children means to them. Because for most people, if maybe they're not a person of faith, family is absolutely everything, or it's second behind faith. So what has kind of like just marriage meant to you? What has your wife meant to you? And then having your child, what has that done for you in regards to your personal growth, Tim?
Yeah, I like I said earlier, like I've just been crazy blessed in life, and Julie and I have been married. 18 years now.
Cool.
Yeah, so it's been super cool, and I think you go through seasons with any relationship, but we've been really fortunate to not, if one of us is too focused on ourselves and not on the other person, like that comes out, and I think just the love is great, and we support each other really well, and I don't know, she's everything to me, and I couldn't have got through any of this stuff. Like I'm without a job, and she was like, "Yeah, man, just keep doing what you're doing. I'll work a little bit more."
Yeah.
And it's been great, and my son just he is just a riot, and he is an old soul. Like he dressed up like John Denver for Halloween.
That's awesome.
Last year.
Yeah.
And he's up early. Like the kid is just, he's super into music. And he's his own person, man.
Yeah.
There's not another kid in his school that's like him. And he, I think, just brings a perspective to just my own world to be like, you know what? Like just the beauty that he sees in his imagination. I can use a little bit more of that in my own life. Just kind of taking a break and enjoying the here and now. But yeah, the things that just really set me off in this world, my wife's touch, my son's laugh, just those little things still get me fired up.
Yeah. What's one thing that you would love to instill within your son, or kind of leave him with as he grows and matures and becomes a man in several years? What's that one thing, maybe like when you're kind of alone and you're thinking about your son, what he brings into your life and adds to your life? What's maybe something that you want to leave with him or instill with him that again, when you're alone, you're like, man, I hope my son grows up and steps into this, or I hope I can leave this with my son. What would that be, Tim?
That he, like, back to your run your own race, and I think if he can just continue just to be himself, and not, I think because he is different than some other kids, like I think just not getting caught up into trying to be like everybody else. Like he's just such a beautiful soul. And to celebrate that,
cool.
You know, be just super cool. I can't wait to see kind of how he grows up and develops into his teens and adulthood. Just continue to be your own person. Don't freaking care what the other kids say. And I just hope he finds what his passion is. And he just pursues it with all he has.
Beautiful. All right. So before I ask the last question, I would just want to ask you about your tattoos, because you got some tattoos. I've got tattoos. I love them. So, you know, coming from, just speaking from my own personal experience, coming from a conservative home myself, and having a dad that was and still is very opposed and against tattoos, I think that probably added fuel to my fire of getting my first tattoo when I was 18 and things like that. But kind of where did the kind of the tattoo thing come from, and kind of what are the tattoos? Not specifically what do they mean to you, but just kind of that form of expression. What do tattoos mean to you?
Nice. The punk rock thing comes out, right? When I was 18, I turned 18, went down and got a tattoo.
There you go. See, we got some similarities, don't we, man?
I have quite a bit of ink. I've got like my whole side done. I've got a full arm sleeve done. I've got some on my legs. And things like that.
Cool.
Probably the arm sleeve that I have is probably like the most meaningful. I've got like kind of a family. Each of my family members, like my immediate family members, has like an animal they identify with.
Cool. Okay.
So that was like my idea for the top part of my sleeve, and then the bottom part of my sleeve. I know you said not to go into meaning too much.
You're good, man. You're good. You're good.
Yeah, the bottom part of my sleeve is I've got a skeleton that's like all underwater, with like an east-west post sticking out of the water, and there's an anchor with like a chain that's broken. And so that is it's not about me like dying to myself. Right. Is the skeleton underwater? That's just like the old me is gone. It's like Romans 8, and then our east versus west is grace. Cool. So from Psalms, there's a verse that says our transgressions are thrown as far as the east is to the west.
Absolutely.
So that's just grace in the situation. Like I screw up all the time, and I know that God's grace is big enough for me.
Absolutely.
And the anchor with the chain that's broken is the anchor of sin and death. So and that was done on the cross. And so that's just a reminder that, like, look, you know, like, it's already been done. Like, everything has been taken care of.
Absolutely.
So out of everything that I got, like, that probably has, like, the most in-depth meaning.
Cool.
And, I didn't get it done in script or something, but I got it, you know.
Yeah, it looks good,
visual representation of that. So, but, yeah, I love tattoos. I'm probably, like, the one business executive in Denver that is pretty inked up.
Yeah, no, I like it, man, because I mean, being in education and stuff, I have to have the two schools I've taught in. I have to have my tattoos covered, and I have hand tattoos, so I have to have those covered and stuff. And I kind of have my own personal feelings and perspective in regards to that, but. I just know for me, like tattoos, I love them, and they're just a form of expression. You know what I mean? And I just, when I see people with their ink, like, most of the time, most tattoos, there is some sort of meaning. And for me, it's like, I can, look at the tattoos that I have and be like, okay, this was a season of life, and this is kind of where I was living at that time. That's what I was going through. And I just think they can be very powerful if you put thought into getting them, so
but for sure.
Awesome. So Tim, the last question that I have for you, just to kind of wrap up our conversation today, is what sets your soul on fire?
I think I mentioned earlier, my wife's touch.
For sure.
The sound of my child's laugh. Being on a long solo super hard run on like a Friday or Saturday, where I can just be kind of alone with my thoughts. And then community, like just being around really good people. And I think the trail running community around where I live, I have some just amazing friends that are a part of that group. And those are the things that just really set me off. Yeah.
Love it, man. So, Tim, I just want to thank you for taking time out of your day today, just to come to my house and to share your story. And I just, we've never met in person before. Right now, we've going back and forth through email and some social media stuff, but just your life experiences and how God has gifted you, man. I'm really excited to kind of just continue like our relationship and getting to know each other, because I just definitely feel like God has given you a lot to give the world, and you have been doing that. And I really feel like, this season that you've gone through earlier this year, it's only going to make you stronger, and it's going to allow God just to use you in greater and more powerful ways. So thank you for your time. Thank you for sharing your story. And if somebody wants to kind of follow along your running journey, kind of what's going on in your life in regards to social media, where can people find out more about you?
Yeah, I'm big on Instagram. My Facebook isn't public, but Instagram is. So,
okay.
People can follow me on Instagram. My handle is BStoked, without an E, so BSTOKD.
Perfect.
Yeah, if you want some nature photos of Golden,
yep.
Start following me there, and I'll follow you back. And,
yeah.
I'm on LinkedIn as well. So
okay, perfect.
Find me on LinkedIn.
Perfect.
I think it's LinkedIn. I think my handle on that is just the letters I-M.
Okay.
Tim Barr.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. Now I don't always do this, but I just feel like this is what I'm supposed to do with our conversation. Is there anything that you would like to share with the listeners before I go into the outro?
I think like life is a journey, mm-hmm. and I think there's always going to be ups and downs and peaks and valleys in that, but not getting so caught up in the valleys to feel like you're down and out. Like if you're going through a hard time, like if someone's going through a hard time, they're listening to this, like reach out and find a friend to talk to, like, or go on Instagram and message me, because I think that there's a lot of people, especially right now in this world, that just feel alone and they don't feel like there's any way out. And specifically, I don't want to get heavy here, but like specifically talking about suicide and just the epidemic that we're dealing with right now. You're not alone, and there's help out there. So I think that trying to have a half glass, your glass is half full approach to things, but if your glass is half empty or even fully empty, like reach out and ask for help, because it's out there. Perfect.
All right, so listeners, I just want to thank you once again for tuning into the 127 Fit podcast, hanging out with Tim and myself. Your listening ears always are greatly appreciated. Your support is greatly appreciated. If you would like to find out more about the guests that I'm bringing onto the podcast and kind of just what they've got going on in regards to their lives and things like that, you can find out more about my guests, find out more about the podcast and myself on Instagram. The handle is at 127fitness. My personal Instagram account is at QVars. Facebook is at Quentin Vars. If you guys would do me a huge favor and please leave a 5-star rating and review, and also subscribe to the podcast. That helps get more listeners. And when we get more listeners, I know that there's going to be more people in the world that are positively impacted, and that is the goal of this podcast. So if you think you would be a great guest, or if you have a friend or an acquaintance you think would be a great guest or guest for the podcast, you can send me an email or give this email out to that friend or acquaintance. And the email is 127fit@gmail.com. And another favor I would ask of you listeners, as you find value in a specific episode or episodes that you're listening to in regards to the 127 Fit podcast, if you would do a huge favor for me and share that episode or episodes on your Facebook and Instagram stories, and then use the hashtag be someone to follow, that would be greatly appreciated. The goal of the podcast is to build a community, to build like-minded people in regards to fitness and life, and then again through that community positively impact as many lives as possible. So per the usual, I will leave you guys with Proverbs 24:10, which states, "If you faint in the day of adversity, your strength is small." This time until next time, I will catch you guys later.